Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This food industry-focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to help keep you up to date. This week on the show, we are discussing the top 10 worst foods for the environment and Time Magazine's Best Food Inventions of 2023. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Food Podcast. I'm Sydney Perlmutter, Senior Food Industry Journalist and Webinar Moderator at xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by Vera Kovacevic. Thanks for coming today. So I have two list stories today, and the first one we're going to be talking about is the top 10 worst foods for the environment. We talk a lot about sustainability on this show, but this list gives you a really good idea of the foods that sort of affect the environment the most. And actually, agriculture accounts for almost 30% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. So of course, that includes food production. And the use of pesticides and fertilizers in food production is also a major contributor to pollution and ecological damage. So I've ranked the top 10 worst foods for the environment based on their greenhouse gas emissions and water usage. So this ranking uses data from Poor and Nemisek and Our World in Data, highlighting the significant role food and agriculture play in carbon emissions, water consumption, and land use. So the following foods are ranked based on carbon dioxide equivalent, or CO2e metrics, which is a universal metric used to compare the warming effects of different greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide by equating them to the amount of CO2 with an equivalent warming impact. So the first one on the list, or the worst food for the environment, should come as no surprise, and that is beef. So according to its CO2 metrics, it generates a remarkable 99 kilograms of CO2e for every kilogram of meat produced. So keep that number in mind as we go down the list, because there's a dramatic drop-off from beef to number 2. Of course, raising cattle for beef is highly resource intensive, requiring significant amounts of land, water, and energy. And not to mention, cows emit methane through their digestion, a gas with a warming potential 27 to 30 times greater than CO2 over a century. So moving on to number 2, a non-animal product is dark chocolate. So it has a much lesser impact, though, at 47 kilograms of CO2e per kilogram produced. And the significant emissions from dark chocolate primarily result from land use changes like deforestation, which disrupt the balance of greenhouse gas emissions and lower the Earth's ability to absorb CO2. And it's important to note that animal-based products tend to have higher emission intensity compared to plant-based foods. So this being high up on the list is a little surprising. Third, we're going right back to animals with lamb and mutton. So the Environmental Working Group found that producing 1 pound of lamb generates more emissions actually than the equivalent amount of beef. Yet, lamb and mutton are not widely consumed in the US. So with an annual per capita consumption of roughly 1 pound, lamb is not a significant part of the American diet. However, considering lamb's 40 kilograms of CO2e emissions per kilogram produced, substituting beef with lamb won't make a notable difference in reducing one's environmental food footprint. Fourth, we have beef yet again, except this time for dairy herd. So beef makes a second appearance on this list, but for dairy at 33 kilograms of CO2e emissions per kilogram produced. And climate advocates have emphasized that decreasing dairy intake, especially cow's milk, is vital in fighting against global warming. Fifth on the list is another plant-based product, and that is coffee. So coffee comes in at 29 kilograms of CO2e emissions per kilogram produced and is the second non-animal carbon emitter on this list. Notably, coffee's environmental impact is largely due to transportation. Countries that produce coffee beans, including Vietnam and Brazil, are often distant from major markets like the US. So transporting coffee beans over long distances, either by air or sea, require substantial fuel, leading to significant carbon emissions. And much like dark chocolate, the deforestation of land for coffee bean cultivation further increases its carbon footprint. Back to animals yet again. At number 6 is farmed shrimp. So with an average of 27 kilograms of CO2e per kilogram produced, farmed shrimp has a higher carbon footprint than most other seafood, emitting roughly double the greenhouse gases compared to salmon farming. When accounting for land conversion for new shrimp ponds, its emission can even surpass those of beef production. At number 7 is cheese. So the third product coming from beef, actually, or cows rather. At 24 kilograms of CO2e emissions per kilogram produced, cheese may do as much environmental harm as some kinds of meat. As mentioned in spots number 1 and 4 on the list of top 10 worst foods for the environment, cheese requires considerable resources due to the environmental impact of raising cattle. So additionally, the production of feed for these animals contributes to climate change, and the waste produced by cows affects both water and air. Number 8, similar to number 6 with farmed shrimp, is just farm fish in general. So fish farming is often touted as a more sustainable alternative to wild fish capture and other types of animal agriculture, but it wasn't originally established with conservation principles in mind. At 14 kilograms of CO2e per kilogram produced, the key factors of the carbon footprint of farm fish are fuel usage and processing. Fish that are transported to distant locations for processing and then shipped again for sale result in higher greenhouse gas emissions, which farmed fish do. 9 on the list is pork. So pig farming, despite appearing less energy intensive, has a high carbon footprint, largely due, like beef, to the methane produced by pigs during digestion. So at 12 kilograms of CO2e per kilogram produced, the handling of manure is another contributing factor. The energy needed to manage the large volumes of manure produced by pigs also leads to carbon emission. Improving manure management practices could be a key strategy in reducing greenhouse gases associated with pork production. And then lastly on the list, another animal is poultry. So poultry at 10 kilograms of CO2e per kilogram produced, the farming of it is pretty intensive, and it results in emissions that affect multiple environmental compartments like air, water, and soil. The production of waste, including poultry litter and manure, often surpasses the quantity required for fertilizing nearby agricultural land, so this excess can lead to overuse, posing a significant risk to the quality of soil and water. So, it's a pretty, there were other foods on this list that I didn't mention because I thought that, the top 10 was the most important. But were there any on this list, Vera, that stood out to you or that you were surprised by?
Definitely, let's start with the ones that I wasn't surprised by.
Mm-hmm, that's a good point.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by, beef and lamb and dairy. Not at all. So, or anything related to dairy, like cheese, right?
Right.
Pork and poultry, also not surprising. But what was surprising to me was dark chocolate and the fact that that was the number 2. I was really surprised by that. I'm not even sure if I'm understanding that much why the impact is so large. Is it mostly because of deforestation?
Yeah, deforestation. I also think a lot of the reasons that all of these made the list are actually really similar. It's just the degree to which they're done. So similarly to coffee, it's also, exporting and transportation as well with dark chocolate. But deforestation is a really, really big one for this. So it's really hard to sort of compare these. The only metric we have to do so, at least from this list, is the CO2 carbon dioxide equivalent, or the CO2 metric. So it is, I agree, it's totally surprising that dark chocolate is number 2 on the list. But it's just, it produces more CO2 per kilogram produced than the other ones because of those sort of factors that we wouldn't really think about, like deforestation and transportation. But like I said, typically animal-based products have higher emissions compared to plant-based foods, but dark chocolate is like a bit of an exception here.
Yeah, for sure. A big exception because it was ranked by the scientific way that how they calculated how much CO2 per kilogram produced. So I thought that was also a neat thing about the list, was that it was ranked. And I was also so surprised by number 6 and number 8. Number 6 was farmed shrimp. And number 8 was farmed fish. And, I never thought that, fish farming or shrimp farming was going to be bad for the environment, or that it emits a lot of greenhouse gases. Can you elaborate a little bit more about why that is for farmed shrimp and fish?
Okay, yes, Vera, I can definitely answer that. So because there isn't really a barrier between farm fish and its environment, it's just sort of an open net cage. There's a lot of fish feed that's involved. Feces that come from the fish and chemicals are released back into the environment. And that often causes uninhabitable conditions for the other species that are living around them. So it's really not great for, the water and the other animals that are around. And I recall reading a story sort of comparing just typical fishing to farmed fish. And of course, both had advantages and disadvantages, but the takeaway was that they're kind of both equally bad for the environment. I guess the only difference with farmed shrimp and farmed fish is that it was sort of created, like the concept of it wasn't really created, like I said, with conservation in mind, but more just to keep up with demand for fish and for shrimp. And it was at first touted as this sustainable alternative, but considering the amount that it harms or can harm the environment around it, it may not be too great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what surprised me on this list was the same thing, the fish and the shrimp. And I was also surprised at, where some of these foods ended up on the list. It was interesting that, lamb and mutton is actually worse for the environment than beef, but Americans just don't eat as much of it, which was really interesting. And a good thing to keep in mind for this list too is that all these factors were considered when evaluating the CO2e emissions, right? So consumption, everything involved from start to finish with the production, and so that one kind of surprised me. And also, I was surprised that pork and poultry weren't higher up on the list. But I guess it all has to do with, land use and their
transportation.
Transportation, everything involved. So yeah, those are what surprised me. And I guess, dark chocolate and coffee being the only two things on this list, they are derived from animals, or no, sorry, not coffee, but dark chocolate at least, being the plant-based ones on the list. I guess cheese as well, even though it comes from animals too. But I'm not surprised that those are the only two ones that are plant-based, because we've known for a really long time that animals do the most harm for the environment. So definitely wasn't surprised to see that there. But I was also surprised that dark chocolate was so high up on the list. All right, moving on to our next story, another list. So last month, Time Magazine unveiled its Best Inventions of 2023 list, which included 13 food inventions, up from 9 last year. So the magazine spotlighted 200 groundbreaking inventions that promise to transform our daily interactions, work methods, and overall future outlook. To select the winners, Time gathered nominations from its global network of editors and correspondents, complemented by an online application process for submissions. And these nominations were then categorized into various fields such as food and drink, accessibility, AI, beauty, and software, among others, and are evaluated based on several criteria. So here are the food inventions of 2023 that met all of this criteria and stood out. The first one is the Chef Doodler. So this is an innovative pen that extrudes sugar in a three-dimensional form, allowing users to craft edible objects similar to a glue gun, but with candy instead. And while this device is compatible with real sugar, it includes diabetic-friendly, flavor-neutral sugar alternative called isomalt. And this substitute can be extruded into thin moldable lines for use. And I watched a video of it being done, and it reminded me of, there's another pen, not food related, but it extrudes, I think, plastic, and you can sort of build these, whatever you want out of it. And it reminded me of that, except this one is edible. So that's pretty cool. Second one on the list, we've talked about these products extensively on the podcast. It is cultivated chicken by Good Meat. So this is a lab-grown chicken that's produced without using or harming any actual chickens. And the startup unveiled its lab-grown chicken pieces in Singapore in 2020. And quickly, its competitor, Upside Foods, followed suit. And on June 21st of this year, the USDA granted both companies permission to sell their cultivated meat products in the US. Third on the list is the Sweet Green Infinite Kitchen. So Sweet Green is a quick service restaurant that specializes in salads, and its Infinite Kitchen technology automates the assembly of its popular salads and bowls, and it's capable of crafting up to 500 an hour, which is 50% quicker than human workers. So customers place an order through a tablet, which then guides the robotic production line to add the ingredients prepped by human staff into bowls. So they're still using humans for some element of it, just not the assembly. And the company's goal is to equip all new outlets with these robotic kitchens. Fourth on the list is an actual new food product that I had never thought that they were going to produce more of, or different types of, and that is the Luna UCR avocado. And this is the culmination of a multi-decade breeding program at the University of California, Riverside. According to program horticulturalist Mary Lou Arpaia, it shares a similar taste with its well-known counterpart, the Hass avocado, but with a slightly more floral note. And its ripeness is easily identifiable with when its skin turns black, simplifying the decision of when to cut it into it. And additionally, its extended freshness duration makes transportation easier. Next on the list is a new stand mixer from GE. So the GE Profile Smart Stand Mixer incorporates a built-in scale, voice control, and other advanced features tailored for baking enthusiasts. So for example, its auto sense function reduces the likelihood of undermixing or overmixing by detecting changes in the motor's torque, which has the capability to stir in both clockwise and counterclockwise directions. And for any bakers out there, I'm sure that's important. I don't know why it is, but I'm not a big baker. Now, next on the list is another sort of appliance, and that is the Spin Pro coffee maker, which is a fully automated Wi-Fi enabled coffee machine capable of grinding beans and using centrifugal force for brewing. So users simply load whole coffee beans into the machine, which grinds them into the perfect consistency tailored to users' drinking preferred drink and roast. And the machine then brews coffee using a centrifuge that spins at up to 5,000 revolutions per minute. Another drink-related product is next on the list, and it's the Nama J2 Cold Press Juicer, which allows users to insert large chunks or entire fruit for juice production, eliminating the need for slicing. So traditional juicers often necessitate chopping ingredients into small pieces and inserting them one by one. But with the J2, users just need to lift off the lid, add the whole or large chunks of fruit or vegetables, close it, adjust the dial, and leave it to do its work. Next on the list is the Kraft Heinz 360 Crisp. So this was launched earlier this year by Kraft Heinz Lunchables brand. The food innovation is a microwavable grilled cheese sandwich that remains crisp. So this sandwich is packaged in a paperboard container equipped with a susceptor. And when heated in the microwave, this susceptor efficiently directs heat to ensure even cooking, making sure that every bite is perfectly done without any undercooked or overly crispy parts. Next is the InvisiCook induction cooktop, and it's a cooking surface that's installed directly into your kitchen counter, replacing traditional stovetops. Initially, using InvisiCook required the InvisiMat to safeguard the countertop and maintain its coolness, but in March, the company introduced InvisiCookware, which includes pots and pans fitted with risers, and these risers fulfill the same function as the mat, but add a touch of elegance to the cookware. And if you go on the company's website and see it, it's really cool. It just looks like a sort of invisible induction cooktop. And I guess it would work great if wherever you live does not come with one or a stove, or you want extra cooking space. Next is another product from Heinz. So this is the Heinz Remix Sauce Machine, and it was introduced earlier this year as a digital sauce dispenser that lets users create over 200 sauce combinations from bases like ketchup, ranch, barbecue sauce, and 57 sauce. So think the Coca-Cola beverage machines that dispense probably up to I don't even know how many beverages, but it just reminded me of that, except with sauce. And this one actually allows you to combine sauces, which I thought was really cool. So this machine is set to make its debut in restaurants, stadiums, and movie theaters, possibly as early as the beginning of 2024. And additionally, it gathers data on customer preferences, providing valuable insights to Heinz for the development of future products. So that's really, really cool. Next is a sous vide machine from Breville. So the dual turbo sous vide syncs with an app to continuously monitor real-time cooking factors like fluctuating viscosity of water, ensuring the exact amount of energy is used to cook meat to the desired temperature. And this innovation reduces the cooking time for steak to just 30 minutes while consistently achieving gourmet quality tenderness throughout the meat. Second to last on the list is the Dream Farm Flusser. So this is a citrus juicer that efficiently extracts every drop of juice from fruits and conveniently folds flat for storage in kitchen drawers. Now, if you're thinking, we already talked about a juicer. Well, think more of a lemon or lime juicer instead. This is not a machine, but rather a handheld tool. So the Flusser also innovates the primary function of juicing by squeezing half a lime or lemon or orange, not just from the top, but also from the sides. So this design ensures more juice is extracted with each press. And lastly on the list is the Sweet Garlic from Row 7 Seed Company. And it's similar to a scallion, but its white bulb and tender green stalks makes it a new food invention. And this unique vegetable is a hybrid of garlic and leek. A product of 10 years of selective breeding and testing, the Sweet Garlic combines the sweetness of leeks with the rich, savory flavor of garlic, while reducing the latter's strong pungency. And versatile in use, it can be sautéed, roasted, grilled, or even consumed raw. So these were the 13 food inventions that Time deemed, the most intriguing. So Vera, I want to know maybe 3 that stood out from this list to you.
Hey, Sydney, this is a great list that you put together from, Time Magazine's list of like 200 things, I think. So the ones that stuck out to me are the ones that I think I would consider using myself. Like, I think the Chef Doodler is fun. Though I'm not much of a baker, I think like if I was, younger when I used to bake more, or if I was just like doing baking as like a group activity with some friends, I think I would love to try it out. But like that Chef Doodler, yeah, you're right. It is like a super fine glue gun, and instead of glue, it's sugar. And I think like with the rise of like social media and stuff, I think a lot of people that enjoy baking have actually started like their own business in baking. Where they're gonna, make cupcakes or, cakes for people's like, engagement party or bachelorette. I don't know, but I'm sure you've like seen it, right? And then they'll take a picture for social media. So I think it's probably going to be in high demand for those kind of people that have a home business doing that. So that was the most interesting thing to me. The second one was the now there's like 2 juice makers, I feel like. There was the Nama J2 cold press juicer, which I think is more for me because like you can insert large chunks of fruits And then it'll make the juice for you. So it's for people who are kind of lazy in the kitchen, kind of maybe like me, or they want to juice like ASAP. And then the other juice maker was the Dree Farm Flucier, which I think the difference was that the second one, like the Dream Farm Flucier, is just extracting like every drop of juice. Right?
Mm-hmm. And I believe it would just be for citrus fruits, or the ones that you can sort of cut in half and get the juice out of that way. So it's more of a citrus juicer, but just it can extract more juice and it can fold up more or better into a drawer. Yeah. So there are two, very different products that serve similar purposes, but with the Nama J2 juicer, that one is you can put fruits, vegetables in there and just let it do its thing, which I think is really cool. And for people who, want fresh juice, but don't want the hassle of, having to chop everything up first and being there while it's happening, you can just set it and forget it, which I think is a great innovation.
So which one would you rather use, like the Nama J2 cold press juicer or the Dream Farm Flucer?
I love fresh juice. So does everyone. I think I would get the most use, honestly, out of the Dream Farm Flucer, just because I'm constantly drinking lemon water. At the moment, I just have a citrus juicer. It works fine. Sometimes I feel like I'm not getting all the juice out of it, and I would also use it for fresh orange juice as well. And the reason I choose the more simple one is just because I don't even know the potential of fresh juice every day. I also feel like I probably don't want to spend the money on the Nama J2 juicer, which I feel like is much more expensive than just sort of the Flucer. But still think it's a really awesome product. And just watching it work in the video on its website, it looks like it works really fast as well. So you're getting that juice pretty quickly with very minimal effort.
Great. Now, Sydney, can we talk about 3 things that I or you would never try on this list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I would never try the last thing that you mentioned, which was the Row 7 Seed Company Sweet Garlic.
Okay.
And the fact that they were like, it could be even consumed raw. I was like, no, thanks. I don't think so. I mean, maybe it tastes amazing in some dishes that people can make. Like maybe it has a really unique taste. I don't know. But I just don't see myself like buying that. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I feel the opposite. I think I would love to try it. I love these vegetables are like garlic, onion, scallion. They're called alliums, and they are used in like pretty much every recipe or savory recipe to add flavor and a typical base for a recipe. And I think leek it counts as one of them. And I could definitely see myself using this in like a pasta dish or a soup. Because I love both leeks and garlic. However, like you, I would not eat it raw. I think that is far too, it would probably be a little too much to take, a bit more of a pungent flavor. But I wouldn't eat it raw, but I would definitely want to try it in something cooked. And I am really impressed by both the sweet garlic as well as the Luna UCR avocado, because these are foods that already exist, but they're innovating them further. I guess garlic maybe didn't exist, but garlic and leeks already did, so they're combining those two, and then a new type of avocado. Like how cool is that?
Yeah.
So I would certainly try those two. But what else would you not try?
I think because I'm not like a big expert in cooking, I don't think I would go with the Breville the sous vide machine. Mm-hmm. Just because I know the way I make meat, I just put it in the oven. There you go. I don't know, 45 minutes, whatever's my standard for it. Depends on the meat, but I'm just not such a meat enthusiast that like I would buy like a sous vide machine for home use. I feel like that's more like a restaurant grade kind of thing, or for like really enthusiastic cooks that want to make it at home. but it's just like it's a little bit too sophisticated for my my abilities.
Me too. And I think it's coming from Breville, which is a company that is also known for making pretty sophisticated coffee makers as well. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that Breville is sort of catering to the enthusiasts, like the cooking and the coffee enthusiasts, by making these sort of a little more sophisticated machines for home cooks. And I think they've really developed a really good reputation among users. So I'm sure as far as sous vides go, this is probably a really good one, but I also would not use it. I slap a piece of steak on the barbecue and that's good enough for me. But if I ever do have a piece of meat that has been sous vide at a restaurant, you can certainly tell how well it's cooked. And I respect the process for sure. But again, money is a factor, and I'm pretty sure this is a pretty expensive kitchen tool as well. So I will also be avoiding that one.
Yeah, and maybe the last expensive kitchen tool we can talk about is the Spin Pro coffee maker. Mm-hmm. When you were like, oh, it uses centrifugal force for brewing, I'm like, wow, that's pretty intense. It's almost like a lab grade thing, except for your home. So just because I don't drink coffee, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I think people who really spend $1,000 on that Breville coffee machine maybe want to consider something like Spin Pro. If it does make kind of really nicely brews your coffee, I think it's a good investment. But I think once again, that's only for people who love their coffee at home. Yeah. Overall, I think this list is very, spans many sections or sectors of the food industry. You've got, new actual food products. You've got food tech that's in here. You've got home appliances, and everything from, a simple juicer to this invisible induction cooktop. So I really appreciate, Time's list here, spanning so many sectors of the food industry. And it was certainly really fun to write about. So come back again this time next year when we do it again for 2024. And all right, that is the end of this episode of the Xtalks Food Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Food Industry Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media. Email podcast@xtalks.com or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.